Hey y'all, it's Tim Miller from the Bulwark. We are monitoring what's going on in MAGA world, really pretty a little too deeply for my mental health, to be honest. But anytime I see something out there that gets into a MAGA subculture, it's connecting some dots I had missed. It intrigues me and it draws my attention, makes us want to go a little deeper into it. And that happened with Mother Jones' article recently by Kiera Butler. The article is called "To Understand JD Vance, You Need to Meet the TheoBros." And so she's here to talk to us about the TheoBros. What's up, Kiera?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Who coined TheoBros? It's a catchy little name, TheoBros. Do you know where that came from?
I got it from an academic that I talked to, but apparently it's been out there for a while because there are even Theo Bros Halloween costume memes circling around.
All right. Hopefully those are not sexy Theo Bros. I'm not ready to get to that level of the Halloween costume meme. The short of it is, I guess you kind of frame these people as young, but they're like my age. You know, it's like kind of elder millennial influencer guys. It's a crew of white men, and they're deep in the sauce when it comes to Christian nationalism and I think the most notable thing is just the way that they overlap with JD's world. So talk about kind of the influencer side of this first, then we'll get into JD.
Sure, yeah. So the Theo Bros, like you said, they are mostly millennial, and I say mostly because there's one notable exception, which we can talk about in a little bit. But yeah, these guys are influencers. Some of them are pastors. They are constantly on Twitter. They do podcasts and podcasts and podcasts. They have conferences all over the place. They look very sharp. They like to talk about, how important it is to look good and to be strong.
Beard grooming. A lot of beard grooming happening.
A lot of beard grooming, identical beard grooming. Their beards all kind of look the same. But sort of beyond their appearance and their platforms, these guys hold beliefs that are more extreme in most cases than their boomer counterparts. Some of these beliefs, and I always like to make the caveat that not all of the TheoBros hold all of these beliefs, but some of the ones that are the most popular are that women shouldn't be able to vote. They want to repeal the 19th Amendment.
Naturally.
They believe that the Constitution is dead. They want to replace it with the Ten Commandments. They talk about prison reform, but by prison reform, they mean replacing prison sentences with public flogging. They think heretics should be executed. And in the realm of heretics, they include gay people.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I might be on the execution block there.
They write these hagiographies of dictators. Francisco Franco is he's a hero of theirs.
Well, Franco's been a big hero of the kind of Christian nationalist right going back to the, middle of the 20th century. If you go deep on like the William Buckley fissure, with people that were too far right for National Review, the sort of splinter group, the Catholic splinter group on the right from National Review was pro Franco. So there's a long line of Franco hagiographies here that these guys fall into.
Totally. And I think what sets these guys apart is that they think that there needs to be somebody like Franco who is a Christian prince that will rule America. They want there to be what they call like a magistrate that's going to enforce, all of these rules and make America.
Nominees? Barron Trump? Do they have any nominees for who the magistrate might be?
I think Barron's probably as good of a magistrate as anybody at this point.
Got it. It's interesting because you make a point that I really try to drill in with people because I think it's hard for them to like grasp, which is the younger set that in the true believer category are more MAGA and more conservative than like these guys are more into Trump and also have more radical beliefs than like a Ralph Reed or like a Christian, kind of like one of the Christian advocates from the Bush era, right? And I think that people kind of assume that like each generation gets like a little bit more moderate on gay issues or on stuff, and like it's the opposite that is happening.
Well, no, and this is the same thing that you see with some of the trad cath movements that are happening too. That you have younger Catholics who are more conservative than than older Catholics. But within this movement, the TheoBros movement, it really is also a case of these folks being willing to say stuff that older folks are not willing to say, and on bigger platforms. So you had Joel Webbin, who's a Texas-based TheoBro, saying pretty recently on Twitter that maybe it was in his podcast, that he thought that Martin Luther King was burning in hell. So, that's just an example of the kinds of things that these folks are totally willing to say, because, what they've realized is that there is not a lot of consequence for that.
Yeah, I want to talk about the connection with Vance, and this was one of the threads that I was like, ugh. I was like, it was a good catch, and I must have dozed off during the live stream at some of these guys' conferences, because I want to play a clip that you guys showed of Vance as well as one of the speakers, Douglas Wilson, talking at a conference.
And of course, coming to the high treachery you were all no doubt anticipating I would address, make all our teens woke by means of chemtrails.
And you had JD Vance speaking there.
America is a nation. It is a group of people with a common history and a common future.
It's not just that they're on stage at the same conference. Like, there's a lot of webs tying these guys together. Yeah,
that's right. One of the major ties is this thing called the Rockbridge Network. JD Vance was involved in starting it. Peter Thiel was also involved in it. And the TheoBros have also been part of it as well. And then there's, you can find photos of the TheoBros with JD Vance. There's one in particular that's been circulating on Twitter. It's pretty clear that they have started to move in some of the same circles, and that, even though these guys, the TheoBros, don't have tons and tons of followers, they might have, 40,000 Twitter followers, and they might be podcasting, mostly for each other. They are close to the locus of power. Another way that they've kind of gotten in with mainstream Republicans is through the Claremont Institute. This is this right-wing think tank. And many of the TheoBros, and particularly the ones that are involved with their kind of literary journal, The American Reformer, are alums of the Claremont Institute. So this was a place where kind of Silicon Valley and political power and TheoBro power kind of all come together.
Yeah, I'm interested in your take on this, because this is something that I've tried to reiterate to my new progressive allies who are concerned about Christian nationalism, is it's that inside game to me that I think is the bigger threat. Like, I had met William Wolf, who's one of these TheoBros, at a Turning Point USA event, but as you said, he only has like 48,000 followers. Like, their platform isn't popular. Like, repealing the 19th Amendment is not popular. It's just not, right?
I guess. It's like, that's not popular, but, yeah. You probably remember when JD Vance was like, oh, I think parents should be able to vote. Their votes should count for their kids as well. So parents' votes would count more. And this is, something that the TheoBros talk about when they talk about repealing the 19th Amendment. They're in favor of household voting. And that's exactly what they think that is. So you kind of see these ideas when JD Vance says stuff like that. It's not as extreme as repeal the 19th Amendment, but you can follow the thread.
And that is kind of, yes, that's a good point. That's what I was going with. I think that, like, the threat to me feels less like, oh, one of these guys is going to emerge as the Republican nominee and they will be able to win an electoral college. Like, it's less that and more that they are on the inside of of HHS, like making random rules, right? Like, if Trump and Vance get in, they have these relationships with Vance, and this network is such that they are going to be the types of people populating another administration, and there's just tons of chicanery that can happen. Like, once they've been put in those kind of positions of administrative power.
That's totally true. And then, I'd also point out that their writing is getting into, just like some of the TheoBros are appearing at more mainstream conferences, like the National Conservatism Conference. You now will see them writing in the magazine First Things, which is not like super famous magazine, but
about First Things over here.
It's certainly
Catholic, it's the righty Catholic magazine. Yeah.
Got it. Yes, right. That's exactly right. So, while it's not American Reformer, which is the TheoBros magazine, which like nobody reads.
Right.
It's bigger than that, and it's read by influential people. So, you can
For
sort of
sure.
see these ideas getting into the mainstream.
Yeah, the other thing to be worried about, in addition to like their relationship with Vance and influence over a potential Trump administration, is the little fiefdoms that they have. And I want to go back to the guy that we showed earlier, Doug Wilson, who's as you can tell by the color of his beard there, is not is the one non-millennial that you had earlier referenced in the influencer set. But I want to play just a little clip of your video of what's happening with that guy.
Now, if TheoBros are kind of the millennial posters of the Christian nationalist movement, Doug Wilson is sort of like the boomer who passed the torch.
He has sort of built his own little Christian fiefdom in Moscow, Idaho. He has this church. He has, helped to start a school, like a K through 12 school there. He has a college there, New St. Andrews College, that he's helped to found as well.
Now, it's this community in Idaho that he's built that TheoBros see as sort of a blueprint for what a Christian America could and should look like.
This I knew nothing about. So like there's an actual school in Idaho that he's running?
Well, there's not just one school. So there's a K through 12 classical Christian school that he helped to found. And then there's a college. There's a New St. Andrews College. So those are two parts of his fiefdom. He also is the pastor of Christ Church, which is a Reformed church there. And he also runs, a publishing house.
Is that then tied into, how does that like overlap? Do you have a sense for, kind of like the Idaho Proud Boy stuff? And like a lot of this stuff is happening off the radar. It feels like up in the northern Mountain West.
Yeah, I think that like Doug Wilson is very careful about who he publicly says that he will associate with.
Yeah.
And I don't think that he would, cop to being involved with any official white nationalists or any 3%ers or anybody like that. But, when you look at some of these things that he's said in the past about slavery, when you look at some of the statements that he's made about women, about immigrants, you can see how that church and that community might be appealing to those folks.
Yeah, it is quite the scene up there. All right, so you're diving deep on all these guys' TikToks and podcasts. Was there anything else that jumped out at you? Anything that hit the cutting room floor? Any particularly funny or embarrassing anecdotes about the TheoBros that you want to leave us with?
The TheoBros loved my story. They were so into it.
They like attention.
They love the attention. One of them changed their profile picture to be our art for the story.
Yeah. I do wonder, so this is something I think about a lot, which is how do you balance this? Like it is, on the one hand, I was talking about this with a couple of reporters. I was at this conference, at this young MAGA conference a couple months ago. And there weren't that many reporters there. And I was talking to one of the other reporters, and I was like, on the one hand, it's like, do you want to give these people more attention and a bigger platform to help them recruit? On the other hand, like if you go back to 2015, it was a total miss by the media to just ignore, to like look at the Trump people and like the weird, kind of cadre of people around Trump and the Star Wars bar and be like, ignore these guys. This is a joke. But it's like the people that were the joke ended up running the government, in 2017, right? In a lot of ways. And so I struggle with that balance. How do you think about that?
Well, for something like this, I mean, when I pitched the story, that was the main pushback that I got from my colleagues. Like, these guys are fringe. They're, crazy people. Nobody's paying attention to them. But once we were able to show the connections to JD Vance, the connections to, the mainstream Republicans, I think, people were more convinced that people need to know about this.
Yeah, I agree. I land on that side too, but it's a tough, sometimes it's a knife's edge judgment call,
I totally agree.
Yeah. On how to deal with some of these guys because they love it. They love to be talked about. It's weird. I'm much more likely to get an interview with like one of these guys, or like even a further MAGA, like Carrie Lake has done several interviews with me, than Tom Tillis, like a normal Republican, because they have shame left, right? And like they don't want to be challenged about their associations with crazy people. But the crazy people are like, yeah, screw it, fake news, whatever. You never Trumper, I'll argue with you. You know what I mean? And so, like at some point, it doesn't feel satisfying to give attention that they want.
That's that's what I was saying before about these guys are just they will go out there and say anything in a way that older like uber conservative people will not. And the other thing is that they can be very, I don't know, like Stephen Wolf, one of the TheoBros. When I asked him for an interview,
There are two wolves.
Two wolves, William and Stephen. It's
Okay.
very many wolves. Yes,
Yeah.
very confusing. So Stephen Wolf said that I could quote him as long as I referred to him throughout the article as doctor and called him unironically an expert on Christian nationalism.
Well, there you go. Kiera and I will be monitoring the wolves, so you don't have to. Thank you so much. Keep us posted, and go check out the full article there at Mother Jones. To understand JD Vance, you need to meet the TheoBros. Thanks so much, Kiera.
Thank you so much for having me.